Hi, beautiful tribe. Sheea here, coming from Austin. And I'm going to talk about the universal law of self-care, which is something that's not talked about very often and might even seem like to some is a little traditional or conservative, but it's actually a universal law. And a lot of us disregard it, and that's why we have maybe not as good of a self-care practice or health because of it. So this is something I've practiced my whole life, really, because it just makes sense, to be honest. And so I'm going to go back to the way I know it is when I grew up Christian. And I think they have a different version of it in every religion, like a lot of the main universal law principles seem to be in every religion, just worded differently. And so growing up Christian, I was aware of this and I practiced it. And I was even had colleagues, in college kind of surprised that I was committed to this. Even though I did go to a Christian college, actually, and they were still surprised that I practiced this. But at any rate, here it is. So some of you may have heard of keeping the Sabbath. So basically, it is a self-care practice of taking one day a week. Traditionally in America, that's Sundays, and having it be kind of like a down day, where it could be a mixture of spiritual practices and self-care practice, meaning rest. There's other self-care practices. I know I do many that are, just nurturing and supportive and restorative and all that. So what a lot of you, I guess, have forgotten is that it's a universal law that we take one day a week at least for ourselves to do things differently, to have rest time. It's contemplation time, reflective time, and time for spiritual practice. So there's really, in a way, no excuse for not doing those things because we were given one day a week to do that on purpose. And actually in the older Jewish tradition, it's literally from Friday night to Saturday night that they have their Sabbath day. And then it got switched to Sundays in America for whatever reason. But you can practice it however you wish and take whichever day of the week you wish, just as long as you do it. And what I have found, just having a lot of experience with this, that if I don't, I end up crashing anyway, eventually, and having to take that time for myself anyway, because it's just how we're rigged. So something to think about. I know Sundays are very traditional, and I do enjoy probably doing it on Sundays the most. And if there does happen to be a lot going on Sunday, like social events or whatnot, then my Monday will be my catch-up day instead, usually, oftentimes, because I find that even though I do this better than most, I still have those days that catch up with me, and I kind of have a crash day where I just really don't want to go outside my house at all. I'm just tired and I need to catch up with myself. I need to rest up, and I just need to do all those things that I normally don't have time to do for myself, which might be like I have a lot of self-care practices, like using the red light system, using like doing stretching or yoga. I personally love Kundalini yoga. I have different things set up in my house that are restorative, like I have a crystal mat and I have one of those egg things that I can like lay on and go down my spine, and it really relaxes my body. Of course, I have spiritual practices, reading, spiritual reading, meditation, things like that, that I really enjoy doing those things. And a lot of us also have like autoimmune situations going on, and it's especially true for us because it's a little bit more of an energy management situation where sometimes we just find ourselves just crashing because we've overdone it a little bit. And many of you have adrenal fatigue, which would cause the same thing. And it's just really hard for you to just keep pushing yourself, because we are in a culture and, in the matrix where that pushing energy and that doing energy is so strong that you almost feel guilty if you're not doing it, doing something all the time, or pushing forward and making progress constantly. It's like there's an addiction to it, or we're expected to do that. Whereas I know that when I lived in Maui, that energy did not exist there. It was not about that. It wasn't about do, fast, rushing all the time. The energy is so removed from that program, because it is an island out in the middle of the ocean, very remote from any mainland. And it's more of a nurturing, in the moment kind of energy there, where you're there to heal and enjoy nature and take it all in and hike and play in the ocean and all that kind of stuff. And so it almost seems like it's the opposite almost, where people were sort of looking at you like, why are you acting like you're in New York or LA? Like you don't need to be a hyper business person. So anyway, just to give you some perspective. So at any rate, when I was in college, and I went to Westmont College in Santa Barbara, which is like this Ivy League Christian college, beautiful in Montecito, foothills of Santa Barbara. And a lot of my colleagues would like cram their homework or their studying for their test, on a Sunday, because they wanted to have fun Friday and Saturday, and they just would cram it in at the last minute on Sunday to get what they needed done. But typically, back then, it was a Christian college. You go to church on Sundays and have more of a mellow day, is the idea on a Sabbath day like that. And I would take that time and I refused to do homework and study on a Sunday, because I knew I just needed a break from that. And so if I needed to do that, I would do it on the Friday or Saturday during the day or whatever, and I'd still go and have fun in the evening. But mainly on Sunday, I just really wanted to keep that special and set that aside for that downtime. And that's kind of how I grew up, and I honored that, because I know that if I start off my week depleted because I've had too busy of a weekend or too busy of a Sunday, as I'm starting that next week, I just am not starting on the right foot, basically, and I'm kind of setting myself up for failure a little bit. And so anyway, I was inspired to share that with you in case you tend to be one who gives yourself a hard time for resting or taking a break, or feel like you're always having to be on the go and proving yourself. And I know that as someone who has a lot of Capricorn, and as well as my Mars and Aries, I can be privy to these kind of programs that our society feeds us, and I can find myself pushing myself all the time, when really sometimes I've learned, because I've done this long enough now, I've just learned that I know when my body is saying, I need a break, I need to kind of reset so that I can be more effective. And that might mean going for a walk out in nature around the block, or it might be laying down for 10 minutes or longer, 10 to 30 minutes, It might be listening to a spiritual YouTube so I can just kind of reboot. And I've learned to not push myself beyond that point, because then I'm just having to really work hard just to stay focused because I'm so tired. And, I need a break so that my mind can reset and then I can be more effective. I found that after I do take that break or that nap or that nature time, then I can come back and be way more effective, and get like my second wind. So something to consider, and it's a good principle to be aware of, because if you find yourself kind of dragging, it's probably because it might have maybe been 10 days since you actually had a day off, or to just catch up with yourself. And I know I can't get away with that. Like, I literally require myself to show up at my best as much as I can. And if I'm going into something tired or depleted, or I'm not able to stay present in the moment, then I know I'm done. I'm toast, and I need to go reboot. And I just won't do that to myself anymore as far as pushing myself into those places. So if you do find that you're dragging or kind of not at your best, just go take a half day or a day and give yourself what you need so that you can be refreshed for going back into the cycle of having another productive week. It's just logical, because our systems, our minds, our bodies all need respite. And if you're just driving yourself into the ground, that's what will lead to health issues. And that's why people get sick, is because they've a lot of times overextended themselves. And I'm very aware of this. I'm very aware when I overextend myself. And sometimes it doesn't seem like much, but when you're pushing all the time and kind of making yourself do stuff, when it maybe is stuff you don't really want to do or don't look forward to doing, but you're staying on it and going down your list, you just need to take a breather after a certain point. And I know that at this point in my life, I live in Austin right now, which is so very different than Maui. So I notice here it feels like I'm having to take some kind of mid-afternoon break after, I'm early to bed, early to rise. So I'm starting at 5:30 in the morning. And so I noticed that by, mid-afternoon, I've had a full day of doing stuff already, and I need to reboot so that I can give several more hours before I call it a day. And so I'm just noticing that's kind of like a normal thing. And of course it changes day to day, but I've come to accept that's I need to listen to my body and how I'm doing and checking in with myself and not overdo it, because then when I overdo it and overextend, then I go into this exhaustion mode that takes me a lot longer to reboot from. And a lot of people will just frankly get sick because their body's like, okay, you're not listening to me, so I'm just going to get sick, so you have to lay down. And so anyway, it's definitely a practice to check in with your body and your mind and just see how you're doing and if you need anything, so that you can operate from more of a resourced place. Hope that's helpful and inspiring, because I know that we can be very preventative about going into tiredness or illness if we do some of these things that are universal laws. It's the way things were set up. And it's kind of like you're out, I guess, or a nice excuse when you're like, yeah, I guess it has been more than a week since I've actually had some time to myself and taken some time off. So, I encourage you to incorporate it into your life in a way that feels right for you.